Hello, everybody. Oh, I better turn this hearing aid off. I'm turning it off so that I will talk louder and we will hear whatever I have to say. But I tell you what, this is a good day. Yesterday, I was reading my comments, and I don't want to get this wrong. But anyhow, there was this elderly gentleman on YouTube by the name of Old Me Living. And he's 81. And he told me, he said, "You're my hero now, because I'm 91. And he may be on YouTube till he's 91. But you know what? He had a lot of wisdom, more than me, and very good. And I just watched some of his stuff, and I think I learned some things. But I didn't learn enough how to do, put letters on my YouTube, and I don't know how to do any fixing. Or I just download it, upload it, whatever, and let her go. Whatever happens, happens. It's there, and it's been there now a long time. So I started out telling, the miracles that God has done in my life, and he's still doing them. And meeting Old Me Living is another one. Y'all check him out. I tell you what, I think you're going to like him. And I was so glad that my dear little friend, she may be taller than me. I don't know how tall she is, but I don't think she's too tall. I'm 5'2", 156 pounds. I've been eating more instead of less, and it's been good. I tell you what we discovered. Oh, I forgot my verse. Now, I had that ready, and I had it in my pocket. Here it is. I got it down at the Y, and it is so true. Of course, all scripture is good. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance. That means putting up with each other. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness. When you say something, try to keep your word. Gentleness and self-control, very important. Against such things, there is no law. This is what helps make the world go round, is the spirit of love, joy, peace, kindness, forbearance. I think forbearance is one of the big ones because some people just can't put up with other people. Well, in that case, you know what you need to do? Pray about it, because have the love of Jesus in your heart, for goodness sake. We need to learn to love each other, and sometimes it's a pure act of kindness to love somebody that's not lovable. And we all run into them sometime, and you just have to be kind to them anyway. I tell you what, when we was on the evangelistic field, I'll never forget a lot of the experiences I learned as we traveled from church to church. And I remember one time, and people are so lonely, some of them, and a lot of YouTube watchers are lonely, and they're watching us because we talk to them, and we're friendly, and we love them, and we're all looking for love. So this really happened. So we was at a church, I think it was Pennsylvania, and there was this man there, and so whenever, you shake hands, he would grab me and hug me up to his chest, and I am richly rewarded on the top. And he would squeeze me till I was mashed flatter than a flitter. And he got to do that 2 times because the revival run about a week that time. Well, after the second time, now I don't usually carry a pocketbook, but I do have a pocketbook, and I had one on the fifth wheel that we traveled on. So the next night, there he was, right in line, getting ready to shake hands with Sister Baird. And so Sister Baird, as he came up, I shook his hand. I took my other hand, pretend this is my pocketbook, and I went, and we just squeezed. He didn't squeeze me the next night. He caught on. I caught on. Lord help him. I guess he's probably dead and gone by now because that's been 30 years ago. So yesterday, James is selling a house. And so his real estate lady, who is having a vacation in Florida, happened to hear somebody talking about James on the television, and it was Reverend Bob Rogers, who has a big church over in Louisville. His daddy was Wayman Rogers, and that's where we prayed. He was a small church back then, and we prayed that God would send us a millionaire. Brother Wayman Rogers was his daddy, and now he's about 70-some years old, and he's been pastoring that church since his daddy passed away at 63. But me and Buddy went to that church right after Buddy got saved, and every time we would go in there, Brother Rogers found out that Buddy had been a country singer, and he would say, "Brother Baird is here this morning. Sing us a song, Brother Baird." Well, Brother Baird had his guitar because he took his guitar everywhere. So we would get up there with his guitar and sung one. He knew 2 gospel songs at that time because he was just like 36 years old. He would sing, "My God is Real," or "Just a Closer Walk with Thee." And he kept singing that each Sunday, brother. Because Buddy could really sing good. He was anointed when he sang after he got saved. The Holy Spirit just touched him. So he would sing "Just a Closer Walk with Thee," or "My God is Real." Have you ever heard those songs? Well, everybody's heard "Just a Closer Walk with Thee," but "My God is Real," maybe you haven't heard it. It's on YouTube somewhere. Listen to it. It's good. Our God is real. So next thing you know, we were praying for a millionaire. But anyhow, this real estate lady on TV heard talking about James. Well, I didn't know James until about 20 years ago. Married him about 5 years after I met him. His wife passed away. My husband passed away. And then we dated for about 1.5 years. And he proposed. And I said, "Okie dokie." I said, "Yes." He got on his knee. He really did. And, okay, back to the real estate lady. So this Bob Rogers was talking about James. And James, many years ago, bought a house in Louisville, and it was like a little grocery store. Now, in Louisville, many years ago, there was grocery stores. Just about every block or two was those family grocery stores where you could get a pound of bologna and a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And you could walk because there wasn't much transportation. A lot of people didn't have cars back then. And so James bought this building, and he was going to this church, Evangel, which I was not going at that time because I found out later James and his wife went to that church also years ago, but I had never met him, never seen him. But James gave this building that he bought. They needed a place, the church needed a place to feed people that are on the street. And that's been so long ago. And so he donated that building. I forget what they call it now, but it's got a name, and it's still feeding people on the street. He said one time after he gave it to them that they fed people on faith, on donations, and they had ran out of meat and didn't have any and didn't know where they was going to get any. And don't you know, one of the members had killed a couple of deer. Now you realize this has been 50 years ago. And bought a couple of deer in. And so when they dressed them deer and put them in a freezer, they had meat for a good long while to feed those street people. What's the name of that place? I'll tell you later. I don't remember what it is. But James took me over there one time, and we ate with them, and they had spaghetti and a salad, and it was real good. Just to see what it was like. It's still in business. So anyway, James, a few years ago, him and a partner bought a property at Scottsburg, Indiana. And they improved some of it and built just a few houses. It was going to be a subdivision. And it just fell through. You know, sometimes your big dreams just kind of fall through. And his fell through. And it was 80 acres in all. Well, he sold off to people to build houses, some of it. But he still had about 50 acres left when I married him. So he tried to sell it. But Scottsburg is not nice about their laws and stuff, and you have to do this, and you have regulations. they have so many regulations that it would cost you $1 million to get everything improved the way they want it. And James just did, and he had a partner, and him and his partner just didn't feel like doing it. So finally his partner said, I quit, and just gave it up. And now he's gone. He passed away. So James ended up with the rest of it. So he said he had been praying about it, and he said the Lord instructed him to give that 50 acres or 55 acres, whatever's left, and it's got a big lake on it, and they did raise crops on it, and it would pay the taxes on it each year. But he decided to give it to Evangel. That's not the name of the church anymore, but we don't go over there. We go to a Pentecostal church, which is a branch of that big church of Bob Rogers, Reverend Rogers' church. And he's a really good speaker, and he's got a memory like he tells some of the best stories of what God has done. You just love to listen to him. Him and John Carmichael. John Carmichael, our pastor, got saved over there in that church when he was 14 years old. And he tells the story sometimes. I mean, he was raised in a heathen home, our pastor. And he's got a lot of good stories, too, to tell. And this past Sunday, his son, John, which they always called him as he was growing up, but now he is John. And he preached, and he did really good. He's bald-headed. He's as bald as a buzzard. But he's gotten a nice beard, and he's got 2 kids and another one on the way. And I watched him, and he did real good Sunday morning. Okay, this 50 acres or 55 acres he's got left, James donated it to that church. And they are planning on, I don't know what's going to happen, but they will be using it for the Lord somehow or other. Either a camp or a halfway houses or whatever, I don't know. But they're going to use it for the Lord. Isn't that wonderful? And James was just a little old, hard-working young man at 24 when he started doing houses. But he has been able to do things for the Lord he never dreamed he could, you know? And it's such a joy to be a part of something like that. And we hope we live long enough to see what they do out there. But he's done with that, and he's moving on, doing other things. And that's, you just keep moving on. And who would have dreamed that after Buddy passed away, I have a little friend down in Florida that's still grieving her husband, Pamela, and she makes comments all the time. You can read it in the comments, and she's still in deep grief over losing her husband a couple of years ago, and I know what that's like, because when Buddy passed, I grieved for 2 years, or 3, I don't know, or maybe 4. It was a long time. I felt like I would never be whole again, and I jumped into it and married again for company, to have somebody in the house, because it was so lonely. And I married number 2, and it wasn't fair to him really, but I treated him good, and we had a lot of good times together. But he was not a love match, and I don't advise anybody to do that. But it turned out well, because I got good Social Security. Thank you, Floyd. You know, just because you get married again, no, you don't lose your Social Security, girls. Some people say, oh, I don't dare get married again. I'll lose my Social Security. No, you won't. You'll have a nice husband if you love him, and you will have your Social Security and be independent and can buy what you want. I am blessed. I mean, if I see something at a thrift store, I can buy it, which I did this past weekend. I got this nice bowl. I ought to show it to you, but it's in the cabinet. And a nice casserole dish to make meatloaf in, a little bit bigger than the one I had, for $2. And they cost about $14 or $20 at the Walmart. We're saving. We're thrifty, James and I. It's just part of our life, because I was raised thrifty. When I was a little girl, living at home, if it hadn't been for we waited for the bus in a little shack, 2-room shack, that Beulah May's dad, and Beulah May was my best friend after her husband was, well, she divorced. He was a mean man. She told me that he made her pay half of everything no matter what. When they got married, if they had to repair the house and bought a box of screws, she had to pay for half of those. But finally she escaped from him and divorced him. And she was a happy woman. But me and Beulah May went to church together and had a lot of good times, and she wore wigs too, like I do. That's how I stay looking good. My wigs help a lot. I got a pixie. I got black hair still on top, gray on the sides, but my hair is straight as a stick. And you can't really do nothing with it. Now, my new little friend, the school teacher, she changed the name of her. Finally, she listened. It took some convincing because she's a hard-headed little old woman like me. I do believe. But I love her. Anyway, forgive me, Debbie. But what I did was on my live, I pulled out my phone and I showed her how many senioritises there was. And I don't think she hardly believed me, but it's a fact, Jack, they're there. And so she named herself, let's see, what was it, Debbie? Life in Kentucky with Debbie. Life in Kentucky with Debbie, I think is what it is. Well, I wrote it down somewhere, but I can get her now, and anybody can get her. Life in Kentucky with Debbie. Life in Kentucky with, because people like to know about Kentucky life. It's different, and she's got horses and a dog, and she's had experience, and she told about being in Alaska for 10 weeks because life was hopeless. That was a really good video, Debbie. But I still want to hear some more. But you ought to check out that. Now, I wrote this down. Old me living. Because he said, as long as you're living, you're not dead. So go ahead and enjoy life and learn something new all the time. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I tell you what, Debbie, you need to learn how to make shorts. And that way people kind of know. I did a little short just up at the flea market last evening when we went to get some exercise, and I just did a little short, and it's just, y'all have responded. I've never got so many hits on a short. It's wonderful. Thank you. It's amazing. Just never know what the Lord's going to do, Debbie. He loves you. He loves us. He gave it, God loves us. He gave his only son that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And he means it. We will go through trials and tribulations, but Pam, your heart will heal a little as the years go by. And it will feel better, but it takes a long time. I thought I would never get over Buddy because I was still crying after I married Floyd. He was company, but he didn't feel that spot that I needed. And he loved me, but I didn't love him like he deserved. Now, his first wife, I know she was wonderful and she adored him, and I was good to him, and as a result, his children really appreciated me because I was never mean to him, except one time, and it was terrible. He was getting they put him on all these kind of medications, and I would make sure he took his pills and everything, even after I had to put him in diapers at home. Otherwise, I had a bed to change. And so I would give him his pills, and he would take them. Well, the last time I handed him to him, before he had this massive brain bleed, which he never spoke again after that hardly, he took the pills and threw them as hard as he could. And I said, well, if you want to die, go ahead and die. I can't save you. And I tried so hard to save him, to keep him comfortable and living, and I could not. And about a few days later, I think he must have been having the brain bleed then, because I went in to I get up first and I had my coffee, and I went in to wake him up, and he looked at me like, who are you? And he couldn't speak, and he was just out of this world, gone, just staring at me. So I called an ambulance, and they took him to the hospital, and he had had a massive brain bleed. And they called his kids in because they didn't think he was going to live. But he did. He did not die, but he didn't speak anymore. So we had to hunt a nursing home. We hunted up a nursing home, and we found a really good one, and that's where he spent the last 2 years of his life. When he was getting Alzheimer's, and I had to quit letting him drive because he had a pretty little red car, and he was backing it out of the garage. I built a garage for him so he would have a place to play with his bicycles, because he repaired bicycles and sold them, and me and Mom would go out to the yard sales. That's when my mother was still alive. And we would buy bikes for, $5, $10, and he'd fix them up and sell them for $30, and he took such joy in that. But when it come to driving, he was getting bad, and he backed up his car and tore the door off. He didn't shut his door. So I managed to get that car fixed. But I told him, I said, you can't drive anymore, I'll drive. Well, he was very thrifty, and he was tickled to death that I was spending my money to drive and not his money. But after he passed away later on, or was in the nursing home really, I examined his car good, and he hid things. And I found a bunch of money hid in the trunk, underneath the floor, the mat in it, and things like that. And so anyhow, his grandson had a wreck. And he was in high school, and he had to drive to school. He didn't have any other bus way to get there, so he needed a car. So they asked me if they could, because I didn't drive Floyd's car anymore, though it was fixed and everything. I drove my own. So I said, yes, you sure can. I said, in fact, if you want to, you can have it. She said, have it? I said, yes, I will give it to your grandson. And I signed it over to him, and they were so thankful. But Floyd was still home then, and still, that was before he had his brain bleed and didn't speak anymore. And so he went to the garage, and his car was gone. And he missed it. He still had enough mind to know his car was gone. So I still went walking up at the mall, and I'd take him with me, and sometimes he'd get lost. And one time he went out another door and couldn't find where I was, and somebody realized he was lost, and they called an ambulance, and somebody come running and told me that they was getting ready to take Floyd away in an ambulance, and I barely got him in time to get him back in the car and get him home. But anyway, I was coming down Blackston Mill Road, and I saw this red car sitting beside the road, $1,200. So I said, I'll buy that and put that in the garage. It's almost the same color as Floyd's. So I did. I got out and I bought it, and I said, could y'all deliver it and put it in my garage? And they said, we'd be glad to. So they did. Talk about a happy dementia husband. When he saw that car, the joy on his face, and he lifted the trunk, and I put some of his stuff back in it, and he got to playing in his trunk again and having a good time with that car, because he just liked to look at it and put the tools back and forth, and like a little boy. And he enjoyed that for a long time till he had that brain bleed. And then I tell you what, that's not good memories, but I want to tell you what, life goes on. And I was at home, and he was in the nursing home, and I thought my life was over. And I said, I'm not going to sit here. I was still... Fact is, after I married Floyd, sometimes I would have a crying spell over, number one, 44 years, and happy years, and that we had after he got saved. Some of them were not so good before then. But he was a changed person after he got born again and living for the Lord. He was a changed person. So anyway, I would still be crying. And Floyd, number two, would say to me, when are you going to get done crying? I said, I don't know. Because it would just hit me sometimes. Sometimes I thought I could hear Buddy's voice calling me, which wasn't true. but it just sounded like I could. And I did talk to him a lot. I'd say, honey, look at this, look at me. And so there I was sitting after Floyd went away, thinking my life was over. And I said, in the dark, that the lonely times are of the evening, seems like. So I got in my car and I went to the VFW, made acquaintances, and started listening to country music and dancing, which was a sin to the church that I was raised in. But God don't care if you dance, and He wants you to dance and be glad and have a fun time. So you know what I did when I went down there? There was a girl down there, and I've told this before. Is there any old men here that would dance with me, you reckon? And they said, yeah, well, Sonny over there. And so Sonny would dance with me. I went over and asked him. I'm a little outgoing, like I told James when I first met him. And the first lunch we went out to, me and James, and I told him, I said, you know, I'm a little outgoing. And I thought he was going to fall off the chair laughing. And I'm still outgoing. And it helps me on YouTube. But y'all check out that dear gentleman that says he's 81 years old. Old me living. And check out Kentucky Living with Debbie. Kentucky Life with Debbie. And that's a good name, Debbie. Let's see. It was. Oh, and don't forget my little friend that says whiteboard. Let's see. What a strange name you have, little girl, on yours. Let's see, what is that? Well, shucks. I don't remember. Storm. Well, I tell you what, as I get older, there is little things like that that slip out of your mind, and you can't, and she watches me all the time. Whiteboard. I don't know. Love you anyway. Remind me again, will you? Because she's watching probably, and I watch hers quite often. She puts different things on. And that one I put on, the old gray mare ain't what she used to be. Well, this old gray mare ain't what she used to be. And that's what was coming to my mind. And I talked to myself and I said, you're getting pretty old. And I said, I'm getting old. I said, I think you've reached it, kiddo. You talk to yourself. I'm going to go. And I'm going to do some more live. I have finally learned how to make, excuse me, my nose is itching. And I did have my coffee right here, but I didn't wave it at you today. I'll have to warm it up again. It's got cold now. Sometimes I drink it cold. Don't make me any difference. But I like my scenery. I got my feet done, and I don't know what I have to do next. Oh, I know. I got a good book. I'm going to read the rest of it. It holds you up in suspense. And it's not a murder mystery. It's a Western. And it's really good. So God bless y'all. Walk that path where Jesus would be pleased with you. I'm pleased with y'all, and I love you. Whiteboard. I keep thinking, oh, well, I can't remember. Sorry, darling. Bye-bye.